I've always loved hygiene. I've loved and appreciated hygiene since I was a child. But I just had that knack for hygiene related things. I always insisted that things should be done a certain way. Trueblue is a divinely created organization. What we are particular about is health. So our business is crafted around health. The essence is to ensure that we help people keep or maintain healthy lives through the services that we provide, which are in pest control and in cleaning, primarily cleaning, but pest control is another major thing that we do. When it comes to pest control, people are very particular about what they want to kill in an environment. And they don't realize that unwittingly, they end up killing human beings slowly in that environment, because when your goal is just kill, you want to kill mosquitoes, you want to kill ants, you want to kill cockroaches, spiders, etc. In making your application, sometimes you overdo it. Sometimes you use the wrong equipment, sometimes you use the wrong dosages, and it has implications on the lives of the people who are using those facilities. So we're very particular about that as well. So the essence first for us is the health of the individual. So we look for the most health-friendly means of attending to the particular pests that the customers are faced with.
This is what I have drawn. I hope you can see it.
Wow.
So
beautiful,
this is
beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember when you had started Trueblue.
I remember completely.
I was meant to give you some kind of cartoon representation of your company. So these are the pest busters. So that's a pest buster. Who you gonna call? Obviously, it's Trueblue, and those are germs that are fleeing the scene. And this machine, I don't know what it is called yet, but it's a very large buster of something. Hello, how are we today? Welcome to the K-Touch, where we have art and conversation. Today, I am going to be speaking with, I have on the podcast, my elder brother, Chukwudifu Onianwa, who happens to be the CEO of Trueblue Hygienic Services. It's so good to have him on this podcast. The last time I had him here, we were talking about everything from soups and stew to a dog having a pet. But now Chukwudi is here on a different capacity. Welcome, Chukwudi. It's nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I must say,
just a small correction. It's Trueblue Cleaning Services, but yeah, so hygiene is what we're about anyway. So yes.
Good. Thank you very much for that. Trueblue Cleaning Services, and I must say at this point that you are looking quite fly. Whenever we meet, you are looking better than I am.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm looking better than you are, but thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate it.
So, Chukwudi, I'm going to crack right on. Please, can you introduce yourself a bit for us, for those who don't know you like I do? Who is Chukwudifu Onianwa?
Okay. Chukwudifu Onianwa is a young man who loves solving problems. That's what I see myself as. I'm somebody who likes to get to the roots and the bottom of things. I like to simplify things. I think I have a peculiar gift in being able to look at things at the most simplistic level and then make them easier for most people to understand or appreciate. That's who I am.
Okay.
A problem solver.
That's a very, very precise one. And well, I'm not going to argue with you there. You've helped me solve problems in the past. Okay, that's good. Oh, before I dive further in, I forgot to mention the K-Touch is art and conversation, which means that as I'm having this conversation with the CEO of Trueblue, I am going to be making art, and I assume he's going to be making some art as well, but no pressure on that whatsoever. And at the end of the conversation, we will reveal our art. So, Chukwudi, you've told me a bit about yourself, but now you are a CEO of a cleaning service, Trueblue company.
Yeah, Trueblue Cleaning Services.
Yes, but I know also that you have your academic background is in engineering. So
yes,
can you please reconcile the two? How did your interest in hygienic services begin? Let's look at your academic background and fast forward till now.
Okay, yeah, well, it's an interesting one. It's I would say, humanly speaking, was an accident, but divinely, God knows best.
Hmm.
Because I've always loved hygiene. I've loved and appreciated hygiene since I was a child.
Hmm.
And I remember way back when we were kids, you may not be able to recall this, but there were moments when in the house, if someone was to take a napkin
Yep.
that was in the kitchen and bring it to the parlor to clean something, I would be vehement about the fact that they couldn't do that. I would insist that anything in the kitchen should belong in the kitchen. What should be used in the living room is meant to be
Yep.
used in the room, that type of thing. And I didn't have any training for that. I don't know how that came about, but I just had that knack for hygiene related things. I always insisted that things should be done a certain way.
Hmm.
It so happened that when I had my NYSC done, even though I had hoped to practice engineering, I was thrown into a firm where facility management was the business of the day.
Hmm.
And it gave me a bit of exposure to customer services. And when it was time for me to set out on my own to start my business, that was an area I went into. So, humanly speaking, I'll say it was an accident, but
Hmm.
God's provision, it is what it is. Engineering is what I studied, is what I had, one of the things I have a passion for and about. And it's really not the end for engineering for me, because I'm actually going to pursue businesses in engineering
Hmm.
in the near future, God willing.
Hmm.
But no knowledge is wasted for
Yeah.
me. Everything comes together, and helps with the future.
Interesting you say that, because I know that some of your services involve the cleaning of places where even such specialties are carried out. So engineering services, you could even clean and carry out hygienic services there as well. And I know
Yeah.
your background makes you more aware of how to handle or comport yourself around such areas, and I think that's quite useful. But you say I don't remember. I actually remember. I remember how annoying you used to be and still are with regards to those things. I mean, you
Yeah.
mentioned the napkin issue. Please, audience, notice I'm not smiling, because really, when I recount some of these things, I see them as annoying. You are talking about the napkin issue. That was very, very irritating. But one that I know you kept doing, and I still do this till today. So your advice, so I don't listen to it, even though it is true. I still pick my nose. And I know
Nice.
back then, your
Good
advice in
for
terms
you.
of picking nose was one of it was two annoying things. There was, oh, okay, when you, my brother calls me okay, okay, but he will say, oh, okay, when you clean your nose with or pick your nose with your hands, go and wash it. Or the most annoying one you would say, because back then we used to carry handkerchiefs wherever we go. You would say, wipe it on the handkerchief, and it used to irritate me, because Chukwudi will find the smallest thing to talk about, and he'll be right. I guess that's what really annoyed me further about it. So I'm just reflecting on the fact you say I don't remember. I do remember quite a few things. Let's just keep it between us and not expose it to the audience.
It's all good. It's all good.
Okay, so Trueblue, you've begun this cleaning service, this cleaning company. What is it? Please introduce us to the company as a whole.
Okay. Trueblue, I would say, is forgive me if I sound too spiritual,
Hmm.
but it is a divinely created business, even down to its name, because I didn't have that name. I just kept hearing that name,
Hmm.
like a ISFA. At the point when I was looking for a name, a few friends will be able to testify to that.
Hmm.
Specifically, two ladies, Anuli Anyadike, if she ever gets to see this, and then or Hazlike Ni Sekwem.
Okay.
So there were actually two ladies who I reached out to at the point when I needed a name, and I asked them to help me out with something. All I did was tell them I need a name that has blue in it. I don't know what other thing there should be, but that blue should be there. And I asked them to help me to come up with names, and they were trying and thinking about it. But I kept hearing Trueblue, kept hearing Trueblue. I never knew Trueblue was actually a word. I never knew that. It wasn't until when the name had become too persistent in my ears, and it sounded a little good, but it just didn't make any sense since I didn't know it had a meaning. I then went and looked it up in the dictionary online and found that Trueblue means steadfast.
Wow.
It means trustworthy. It means dependable. It means loyal. It means reliable.
Really?
Yes, that's what it means. It's actually a word. So I was blown away because it turns out that I wanted a business that people could associate with those adjectives. But I didn't know that there was a word that could capture all of that, at once. And I kept hearing that word in my head until I yielded and looked to find out what exactly it meant. So for me, it is that big a deal. So Trueblue is a divinely created organization by virtue of that and so many other things.
Okay.
What we are particular about is health. So our business is crafted around health. The essence is to ensure that we help people keep or maintain healthy lives through the services that we provide, which are in pest control and in cleaning, primarily cleaning, but pest control is another major thing that we do. So as opposed to a situation whereby, which is what typically happens, people focus on aesthetics. How do things look, the appearance of things? You want things to look neat, tidy, etc. We focus on hygiene. So aesthetics is something very important for us. We want places, to look good, shine, be beautiful, be presentable. But we focus on what I would like to say is the microscopic level, so to speak, in ensuring that the place is actually hygienically sound. And in doing that, we end up having a place that is aesthetically pleasing.
Okay.
So that's what Trueblue is. The pest control side is the same thing for us, because when it comes to pest control, people are very particular about what they want to kill in an environment. And they don't realize that unwittingly, they end up killing human beings slowly in that environment, because when your goal is just kill, you want to kill mosquitoes, you want to kill ants, you want to kill cockroaches, spiders, etc. In making your application, sometimes you overdo it. Sometimes you use the wrong equipment, sometimes you use the wrong dosages, and it has implications on the lives of people who are using those facilities. So we're very particular about that as well. So the essence first for us is the health of the individual. So we look for the most health-friendly means of attending to the particular pests that the customers are faced with. If you don't mind me elaborating a bit.
Okay.
If you say to me that you want me to come in and, like you say, fumigate your house, it's wrong terminology, actually. But if you say that you want me to come in and fumigate your house, when we are right from the customer service person you speak to, the first thing we want to know is what pest is giving you difficulty.
I like that.
Because the idea is to solve the problem that exists and not solve the problems that you assume exist. Because when you overdo something because of things that are not in a particular place, you ultimately hurt the environment and then the individuals who are over there. So you don't need to do something very drastic to say that you want to do something that will get rid of every single possible pest that there is. There's no such thing. But you have measured treatments that can help with certain pests. But there are treatments you do to keep snakes at bay from a house, for instance. And that's useful when somebody lives in a place that maybe you have overgrown vegetation in the surroundings, etc., everywhere. You don't need that in a place where there are no snakes in the vicinity. You don't need to be applying treatments that will take care of or get rid of alligators and crocodiles when you are living in an area where they are not, native. I mean, so that's what it's meant to be. But most people just go and apply everything full scale, like they are going to war, and then they hurt the residents of that place, people who use the facilities, and then the environment as well. But because these things are in minute levels, relatively minute levels, they don't know, but things are being built up in their systems that may ultimately lead to ill health for them.
Wow. Chukwu, that's a lot to unpack, and I'm saying this because I'm one who has a microbiology background. So when you're saying these things, it's actually ringing a lot of sense in my head. You talk about not just cleaning the area, because the place could look clean, but it doesn't mean that it's bacteria or fungal free. And then you're even talking about, oh, you want to eliminate X, Y, and Z. Do you want to sterilize the entire place, or do you want to only get rid of certain problems that you have? And by sterilizing or removing contaminants, what is it that you are doing that might actually cause a problem to others as well? So these are really, really interesting points you've raised. So thanks a lot from that, because it just means that your services, by my understanding, are more information based and just not emotionally driven in terms of what you are carrying out. So you don't want
Yes.
the customer to say, "Oh, okay, the rats have disappeared." Okay, but what else has disappeared as a result of the treatments you've carried
Yeah.
out? So thanks
That's
a
right.
lot for that. I also wanted
You're
to
welcome.
reflect
Can I
on.
can I can I interest you in something? Can I
Oh,
mention
please.
something that may be of
Yeah.
interest to you? I can come into your environment as an ill-informed person or
Mm,
as someone who is not very well trained,
yeah.
and rather than clean up your environment and make it more habitable and healthy, I can actually spread disease.
Correct. Spot on.
So, like one of the things that happens in our industry is that people, in order to save money, use the same cleaning materials over and again for multiple customers.
Yeah.
So you can go to this man's house and clean, and you say use the same mops and napkins you use for
Mm,
person's house and then clean, take them to another person's house and then clean. And what's happening is that you're taking organisms from one person's house to another person's house. And people don't understand it because they say, oh, I washed it, I used Dettol, I
mm,
used the septics, etc. But the question is, how well did you do it? Are you
yeah.
well informed as to the types of mixtures you could do to actually get rid of microbes from there?
Yeah.
Then when
Yeah.
you wash these things the way we claim to wash them, do you actually get them sun dried
Mm,
or fully dried by some means, or you just have them damp, moved into storage, and then when it's time for another clean, you just come pick them up and then go again? Because what happens is that you're breeding microorganisms on the surfaces of those cleaning items,
yeah.
which you're taking to someone's house and going to spread there unwittingly. Because you can't see them, you don't have any sense of their presence there,
Mm,
because you're looking at the macro level,
yeah.
but the diseases occur on a micro level. So
Yeah.
you can add in pathogens to someone's environment and not knowing it. So you come in, you see the house, and the house is sparkling. It's looking very good. It's looking very good, but
Mm.
on the walls of the bathroom, you've deposited very harmful bacteria that will just keep going over there. And everybody who walks in there is exposed to it on one level or another, So
It's
you can
interesting you're saying that.
make people sick. You can make people sick through cleaning, when
Mm,
it's very bad cleaning.
yeah. That's a lot to unpack again, like I said. But and I don't know, you don't have to have this, so this is just a random thought. Have you, in any of your dealings, met with customers who have expressed disappointment over previous similar jobs carried out by other companies, for instance, to say, oh, they came in, they have not really gotten rid of the problem, or just a general dissatisfaction? I just want to know, out of curiosity, what your customers, what the feedback has been.
Yes, so we get that a good number of times where people complain about the services they received from some other party
Mm,
before we came in. Yes,
yeah.
it's a no. And that's really because the business we are in is a business that has very low barrier to entry. It's
Mm,
very easy to go in and start a cleaning business. You don't
yeah.
need heavy equipment. You don't need it. You can start very small.
Mm,
So the implication of that is that you have a lot of inexperienced people who come in, because cleaning is something that everybody does in one level or
level
another.
or the other. True.
Yeah,
True.
so you can just be very uninformed, but because you clean your room, you clean your compound, you can
Mm.
assume that you are sufficiently
Prepared for the
skilled,
task.
and prepared exactly for the task. But when you go ahead and work for customers, you may not meet up with their expectations in terms of
Mm,
the outcomes.
mm,
And so we have those situations where customers come to us and say that somebody had done these windows before, but look at how they are. Does
mm,
this look like a window that was very well cleaned?
mm.
And then they call on us to do that. And it typically happens around windows. Interesting.
Wow.
But yeah, so that does happen.
Wow. Okay. This is, like I said, you said quite a number of things, and I will try not to dwell so much on this. I know you're a busy man. Um, but I just also wanted to reflect on the whole concept of Trueblue and how you got the name. By just sharing also how my name came about. Now, mine wasn't spiritually, divinely orchestrated, at least not to the best of my knowledge. But with you, it's so interesting how you could stamp a seal on a name. My business has gone through so many changes over time, and one of the changes has been name wise. It just keeps flipping and flipping. I thank God I finally arrived at a name that sticks, and even when I finally arrived at that name, I know what the struggle was. You can ask my wife, she will tell you okay, Chiku will come up with a name today, then switch it tomorrow. But you've come up with something that is really solid, and that places a lot of confidence as far as I'm concerned. But well done. You are leading the Trueblue. I'm leading the K-Touch. But when did you first nurse the idea for the company?
For that company, for Trueblue Cleaning Services, I would say that was in so the very year that I actually started, which was 2015, will be 10 years this year. We've been doing this for about 10 years. It was that very year that I started the business, that I envisioned the company. But I had dreams and ideas for business before then, stretching back even 11 years earlier. But for this particular business, Trueblue Cleaning Services, it was the very year it was established that I had that, just early in that year.
Okay. Wow. All right. And it's grown, you would say, since then?
It has grown. It has grown to the point that I can't recognize us.
I like that.
And I'm truly very grateful to God for that, for the privilege and the honor of being the person to hold this dream.
Wow.
Right. And particularly so because I feel extremely blessed, being that I said on a forum several weeks ago that I really don't consider myself to be the CEO of Trueblue Cleaning Services. I am on paper, but I consider myself to be the COO, the Chief Operations Officer. And that somehow God is just the CEO because when I have ideas regarding the business, I really wonder how someone like me, with my very limited knowledge and experience, will be having such grand ideas and be able to, implement them. So I feel like I'm just a vessel that God is using to implement his own idea, if you don't mind how funny that might sound. I'm just simply privileged to be the tool being used in this instance.
Wow.
So that's really my perspective.
Okay. It's interesting. You just talking right now. You're just giving me more questions to ask. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. But my question now, as a follow-up, is how easy was the company to set up?
Well, set up on its own was easy in the sense that just register a name, go on into planning out, having ideas, etc. How do you want to execute and start? That was the easy part. I think the difficult part really was in implementing, so to speak, because you're running against a culture that doesn't appreciate what you're trying to do. So, for instance, you're bringing up workers who may consider your hygiene standards as an overkill and completely unnecessary. When we started out, a short while after we started out, I came up with a policy and system that required us to always have to buy cleaning materials afresh for every customer that we serve, every new customer. So in terms of the items that have an impact on hygiene, the napkins, the mops, the sponges, etc. So every new customer that comes in and requests a service for us, we have to get those things afresh for them rather than share what we've used.
Yeah, when you told me that, I was shocked. Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And some of our cleaners were surprised at that because they had worked for cleaning companies before. And for them, it was like a waste. Why would you go and buy these afresh? And then, our culture was to leave behind whatever we use for the customer as a gift. And the customers would take them on and use them from that point for their house, from their homes.
Wow.
Afterwards. So for them, it was like a waste. Why would you do something like this? Because the culture they came from other companies was that they had to use and reuse. I remember when one cleaner said to me, Oga, they try you. If say that our company before, we go. So in his words, I'm sure he was trying to speak about mold or something. He said, but what he used was Spirogyra. He said, for that our company, Spirogyra go they grow on top the napkin. So the management of the company would insist that the cleaner should still use those items in cleaning for their customers. And it was a big company. In fact, one of the companies that clean the major banks in Nigeria, but this was the practice, what their management did. So the cleaners were shocked and they felt it was wasteful. So when you come in and you're coming against systems like that, people may feel that you have too much money to spend. And that's why, you are doing all of this because, hey, what is it? Is it not cleaning again? Is it more than cleaning? Why are you coming in with all these unnecessary standards that nobody has asked for? So that's what I think was the more difficult part, going against the culture and the norms in the industry, Wow. But we did what we did, and here we are.
Wow. Started from the bottom and now we're here. Okay. Do you have a background in hygienic services? So I know you do cleaning, but what about hygienic services? I'm more interested in how the kind of training you've had to undergo to be where you are at the moment, because someone who is leading a company such as yours should be able to speak with authority. So what kind of knowledge base do you have to run what you're doing?
Okay, all right. Not much.
Okay.
Other than a knack, not much other than a knack and great conviction, about what should be done and how it should be done. We are all individually skilled and gifted in our own peculiar ways. Some of us are able to see things that not every other person, sees. See them differently and imagine better things than what is on the ground. So for me, what it is just that childhood knack for hygiene that followed me decades into my life, as I am now in my 40s, where I've been able to tell that something is wrong with a particular system. And it just shouldn't be. And I should follow up in saying, because you may get tired of my reference to spiritual things. Follow up in saying that I have implemented, just to talk about the training side, I've implemented systems in Trueblue cleaning services without anybody's coaching, anybody's advice, direction, etc., only to find that they were international standards existent. So, for instance, I think it was in 2016 that I came up with what I call the color coding, whereby it's not just enough for us to say that the napkins we use in the kitchen are different from the ones we use in the living area, different from the ones we use in the toilets. We do that, right? But I then decided to give them unique colors. The same thing also with the mops. So I gave a unique color to the one in the kitchen, unique color to the one in the bedrooms and the living room, a unique color to the one in the restrooms, right? And ran with that idea and concept, trained our cleaners to follow those systems, and ran with the idea for a few years, only to discover last year that my exact color coding was what was applicable in the British Institute of Cleaning Sciences, BICS. I'm not saying just that, they use different colors, but they use the exact colors that I had been using for many years. It has been a standard there for a very long time. It's what I've been using here as well, without any reference, and that's just the system that they use. The only difference is that they have one additional color. So we have 3 primary colors and then one that's I kind of call a secondary color. But they have 4 primary colors. That's just the difference. It's like a color that is different and unique. And that actually falls usually for areas where you have a sort of clinic or something, within the establishment, So then that other color applies there. Otherwise, it's the same exact color coding. So how do you explain that? That I had an idea back in 2016 and then implemented that idea. And then in 2024, right, 8 years later, I found out in 2024 that exact color code is what's applicable, with the British Institute of Cleaning Sciences.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So, that just furthers what I said earlier about me feeling that I'm just the chief operating officer, even if I'm the CEO on paper,
Yeah.
while God is the actual CEO who is, so to speak, directing our affairs.
But it's really interesting as well, because I know you've asked me questions from time to time on certain steps that you want to take regarding certain activities, and I think that's actually a very good one as well, because I have a science background, but one thing I've been taught growing up as a scientist is when we don't have the information ourselves, at least we know where to go to get the information, and just getting you encountering you or interacting with you on those days when you're like, oh, what do you think about this in terms of this microorganism and all of that? To me, that actually builds confidence in what you're doing, because you also source information from people who should know about the things that you're about to do. So that's really amazing.
Yeah. So when I have a thought or feeling that I should be able to solve a particular problem, or take us to the next level in terms of where we are as per operations, I would usually reach out to someone who is an expert in that particular area. And you being a virologist, I'm always particular to know, okay, so is there a treatment that can get rid of so and so type of thing, if you want to get rid of mold, etc. And I do my own research too as well. So apart from doing my research, asking questions, even using artificial intelligence as well, I then also reach out to people who are credible professionals in what they do, and ask them for what they think about certain problems that I want to solve. I said, I'm a problem solver.
Cool stuff, Chukwudi. Okay, let me just move forward. We're going on quite well. Is it possible? Do you remember your first job and how that felt? I know it's been a long time since you've been doing this, but can you remember your first job and how it felt going into that?
All right. For this one, I should give a shout out to a very good friend of mine, who was one of the friends who I called together when I was going to establish this business. His name is Ayotunde Uche. You should know Ayotunde. We were all in fellowship together in Fekas area at some point. Ayotunde was the one who gave us our first cleaning job.
Wow.
Incidentally, that was one of the jobs that job boosted my self-confidence a great deal, because our ultimate customer was Rekit Benkisa, makers of Dettol. And so it was very particular. It was very important to me, because we had a hygiene service provider in the place of Dettol.
Yeah.
Getting a hygiene service from us, and that was our
that is amazing
job, yeah. And it was a corporate job. It was an excellent one. We cleaned the accident and emergency ward of Lagos, of Unilag. We cleaned the accident and emergency ward, and the children ward of Lutz that year. It was a great experience. We used very experienced cleaners there. And what I just did was ensure that they followed a good hygiene system there. So shout out to Ayotunde Uche.
Wow.
I hope he gets to somehow.
Wow. I hope he does. I hope he does. So that's most people will not remember a job that has been in existence this long, and I remember the first job. So nice one for you. So I know you've talked about other services. I just wanted you to re-emphasize what you feel your key advantage is over other companies that render similar services.
Yeah, so for us, I think the key advantage is we just want to solve your problem. If we find out
all my problem,
if we find out your problems that pertain to what we do anyway. If we find out that you have other problems beyond the one you've come to us for, we can identify those problems and let you know, so that if you are interested in working on them at once, you could do that. But it just keeps you informed. But we just want to solve your problem. You see, if you tell me, once again, I'll go to the pest control side. If you tell me, I'd like to fumigate my house, I'm not going to give you a bill of 60, 70, 100,000 naira just to come in and fumigate your house and say, okay, the job is done. Give me my money. I want to know, what is it that has happened in your house that has caused you to call for this service? Because if we come in with the mind of doing something generic because you've called us for this here, we may end up not solving your problem. For instance, a bedbug problem cannot be treated like a cockroach problem. The life cycle of the bedbug and the life cycle of the cockroach are entirely different. You can't apply the method you use for taking care of rats to the method you use in taking care of termites, you know. And even when it comes to termites, you have to be able to understand what species of termite you're dealing with. Are you dealing with the dry wood termites? Are you dealing with damp wood termites? Are you dealing with subterranean termites? Because they have different means of entering into the house and ultimately different means of treating. So we just want to solve your problem. We don't want to come in there, make an assumption about what you need, and leave your environment only to find out that we did not solve the problem because we never asked what the problem is. So I think that's where we are different from the majority. And then on the cleaning side, of course, it still applies for the pest control side. On the cleaning side, health, your health, your health, your health. So we are more careful about ensuring that we don't go outside of what the standards we have set for ourselves are, so that we can keep you healthy after we have worked for you. Some people move into a new house after cleaning and they won't realize it, but they may start falling ill. The illness could just be as a result of the unhygienic cleaning that happened, even though everywhere looks sparkling. You know, so you've come here, you smelled this here, you smelled this here, you use the napkin that you use in cleaning the toilets to go into the kitchen and you cleaned in it because you said you washed the napkin, you know, and so on. Those things should not be heard of. You know, that's cross-contamination inadvertently. So we don't do that. So even if you're not in the premises, in the environment when the cleaning is taking place, we owe it to ourselves and to you to follow through on those standards that we've set in the first. So that's where I think we're different.
Wow.
From the law.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned, I just love how you mentioned fumigation. You actually reminded me that even with regards to that, I consulted with you on a project I had going on years ago. It was I was writing a book during COVID and Ajoria. I consulted with you with regards to a particular chapter I was writing. Please, this is me advertising my book. Go and get Ajoria. But I did consult with an actual cleaning company on whether or not my the chapter that I wrote was good enough with regards to an action that required cleaning services to come in. So that was just a brief reminder. And yeah, that was a long time ago. And yeah, we're going to come to COVID because I know you have a few things to say about that experience and that time in the company's life cycle and how that navigating that period was. But tell me about a bit more about you still setting up this company. Can you go into details about certain things you had to learn, certain skills you had to adopt in order to effectively manage the company?
Okay. So I hope you won't mind me when I do shout outs because
please
every time
keep shouting out, yes. And if I remember, I'll tag the people in the video if I know them, if I have access to them.
Excellent. You know, so we already did a couple of them, right? So I have to give a shout out to one Mrs. Dieprie Oshibodu, who had told me at the time when she heard I was setting up my own business. She called me one day back then, same year, 2015, and said to me, Chukwudi, don't depend on your workers. You have to learn the processes yourself. You have to literally pick up the mop and learn how to mop. You have to be able to pick up the broom and learn how to sweep. And of course, not as if I didn't know how to do that or anything of the sort, but she was speaking from the very professional point of view. So there is the side of you cleaning on a day-to-day basis as an everyday person, and there's the side of the professional cleaner because there's a method to it. So it's not just the arts in quotes, but the science to the actual cleaning, the methodology to how to hold them up, and so on. So she said that to me, at first I thought it was unnecessary. What she was saying was really unnecessary, but I did give it some thought and I yielded to her advice and went on to learn a few things myself. And to be honest, that piece of advice saved me a great deal because as a business owner today, it doesn't matter who you are, who works for me. You can't do shakara for me. You really cannot, because that I don't do the day-to-day work is not because I can't, but because I shouldn't. You know. So, but if there's a problem that's very serious, I can explain to people what to do, and so I'm able to today train people who work for me on what exactly they need to do, how they need to do it. So nobody can look at me and say, "Ah, God just they talk, you know, sabi the thing, you know, sabi the thing," you know, that type of Niger talk, you know. So she was very instrumental in getting me to understand the need to not be held hostage by people who work for me. So that was I don't remember the exact question, but you know,
you just talked about certain skills or things you had to learn and adopt in order to effectively manage the company.
So, yes, that's right. So that was it. You know, so in terms of physical skills, yes, I had to do that.
What about administration? And you know, things such as costing, budgeting, allocation of resources. Are there any specific things you've had to learn in that area, or is it something you are already relatively good at?
No, thanks for that question. To be very honest, I had a relatively good knack for some of those things already. I don't know how really, but I had a relatively good knack. I think maybe because I just tend to be observant. And over the years, because I had a love for business, even though I didn't know how things would pan out eventually in my life, because I had a knack for business, I used to watch a lot of business TV shows. So I remember always watching Small Business 2000, American show on PBS back in the day. I used to love watching that, you know, and so many other things as well. And I was always reading. It's just I don't have a lot of that time now, but I love reading articles from Harvard Business Review and so many other platforms. I used to love reading business newspapers, you know, such as Business This Day. So many other things and avenues and platforms like that. So those may have unconsciously, I may have absorbed a lot from them. To the point where upon starting business, I didn't have so much of a great need to learn those things because I had already become, you know, somebody who was
relatively confident.
Somewhat, yeah, that's right. You know, I gained some confidence regarding those things.
Okay, yeah, that's a cool one. And actually, I can testify of that. You've always had a knack for things like that. I think those times in from our childhood when I think you were actually you were too serious. I know you. Well, I've known you now. I know you have a funny part to you, and you are lighthearted. But you do know how to focus on business that needs to be done when it needs to be done. You're actually very good at time management as well. So yeah, you're clearly proficient in those. What about a bit more in terms of interpersonal skills and soft skills as a CEO or a COO? Because you are managing people, I will assume. This is not a company that you are running just by yourself. So can you share a bit more in terms of what that is like? The interpersonal skills that you have needed to effect or practice or apply in order to manage a company such as yours?
Okay, so it's a very big part of business. Sometimes you have employees who don't get along with each other. So people are quarreling.
That's a new one.
Themselves, among themselves, and you have to be able to get them to get the job done, notwithstanding the personal issues that they have with each other. It's a very big thing. I unfortunately have to tell you that I also have a knack for that one. I didn't have to learn it. I've always been a peacemaker.
Mm.
I don't like people quarreling, so I like making peace between people.
Mm.
Things I've been doing since secondary school days, maybe even back to primary school days.
Mm.
So I have simply applied what I've used all my life
Mm.
to ensure that I get people to see the bigger picture.
Mm.
Life is, very, very simple, easy thing if we all learn to get along properly. But
Mm.
I know when to put my foot down and insist on something. I don't have to deceive myself about it. I know that I am the head of the organization,
Yeah.
So when it is time to, I can insist and say, no, this is what must be done, but communicate it in a manner that people understand that I'm not just trying to be bossy or saying this simply because I want it to, but that from my own little informed position, I have seen that this is the right way to go.
Yeah.
So it may go against what some people think or want or feel,
Mm.
but they know that they ultimately have to trust the leader.
Yep.
And just go ahead. If things don't pan out well,
Yep.
and they are so as a result of my own, wrong decision, then hey, I will face the consequence anyway.
True. Yeah.
But regarding what has to be done, let's do what has to be done.
Mm.
That's like the philosophy.
Wow. That's a very interesting one. Thanks for sharing that. And so I would ask, what would you say is the most, so let's look at the most challenging aspects of the company, the challenges it's faced, but also the most rewarding aspect from its services.
Okay. So the most challenging aspects of business, I would say, I should have said the economy really, because as things get more difficult, you have a situation whereby people like us who buy certain hygiene
Products.
impacting products for every customer who we get, you have a high turnover of those things, and so when you have to buy them and buy them and buy them, it's taking up costs which you're ultimately one way or another passing on to the customer.
Yep.
And not everybody can keep absorbing those costs.
Yep.
So that can be challenging. But even beyond that, I think is still the issue of culture. Because while people can be trained, you have to reinforce training, reinforce training, because when you relax training and you don't come, and I guess that's why you hear people talk about training and retraining, not just training but retraining.
Yep.
So when you relax, after a while, people may go back into their old ways.
Yep.
And you don't do that. You want a situation whereby people understand this is our culture and you have to embrace it. And so you reinforce that to them so that it stays in their conscious and even subconscious thoughts, so that in your absence they
will still maintain that.
You can help them to do that. So I think that's the more difficult time. So being more difficult thing. So being able to make provision for training and retraining. Then rewarding. What's the most rewarding side?
Yep.
I think I was going to say probably the financial part is the most rewarding side, but I think the most rewarding side is actually being able to provide jobs for workers. Because when you know that through the work that people do for you, they can pay their rent, pay fees for their children, and so on. It's its own level of reward. It's a reward in its own self. Where you say that somebody is able to do these things without, exposing themselves to, ridicule or people with bad intent, etc. They can work for their money and don't have to be at the mercy of some other person. I think that's the most rewarding. And then, alongside that, you can then bring in that thought about those customers who understand, discerning customers, I need to qualify that, who understand the value of what we bring and are quick to praise us as soon as they realize what we do that's different from every other person. That is also a very rewarding feeling.
Wow. Wow, that's really good because in one answer you've it's as though you've rehearsed this. In one answer, you've included your company, you've included the employers, you've included those your clients as well. Spoken like a true manager. Okay, let's move a bit. We're slowly coming to the end of this conversation, and which has been very very unique and very rewarding. But let me ask you this on a lighter note. What is your favorite pest? Do you
My
have a
favorite.
favorite pest or the most interesting pest?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I would have said bed bugs, but thinking about it again, termites.
Okay.
That would be termites. Yes, termites, and I would say the subterranean termites in particular,
Okay.
because of their peculiarity. So, what happens with them, and how you know subterranean termites is you see something that looks like mud on a wall stretching upwards.
Yeah.
Thin tube going upwards
Yeah.
along the
Yeah. I know
wall.
what you're talking about.
When you see that, what you're seeing is a mud tube, and
Oh, is
subterranean
that what
termites
it's
are
called? Okay.
called mud tubes. They are meant for transportation, and they provide shelter
Interesting.
to the termites. Yeah, they provide shelter to the termites as they traverse, and move all around the building, taking them to the source of food where they want to feed them. Whether it's the timber in the roof, etc. So subterranean termites, because they can be very difficult to get rid of. People have it all wrong. So when you call a pest control person, they come in and they come with their thermal fogger, ULV fogger, or compression sprayer, and they're just blasting all over the house, and they've done nothing. Why? Because somewhere underground is a lady called the queen of the termites.
Yeah.
And on a daily basis, the number of eggs she lays, right, number of termites that come forth are more than the ones you will kill, right, when you're doing all those applications inside. And so you are ultimately wasting your time and money with everything you are doing, because until the queen is dead, your problems will not go away. So being able to attend to it, solve that problem of killing the queen that you probably will never see in the net that is several feet under the foundation.
That sounds really terrible. That sounds really terrible.
Yeah. So they are my favorite. They are probably my favorite pests because of their social insects, and they are very difficult to get rid of and very expensive to get rid of. So you can spend upwards of 500,000 naira to get rid of subterranean termites.
Wow.
If it's some other type, maybe like dry wood, damp wood termites, it can cost you less. But the subterranean type, no, because of the peculiar type of system, because you must dig or drill into the ground beneath so as to inject the termiticide, that's what's ultimately going to kill them, into the sub layer for it to ultimately take care of the problem. It's very interesting. I love termite problems.
Well, I just wanted to also follow up on.
I love solving termite problems. I don't like termite problems. I love solving termite problems. Sorry, I cut you off.
You'd be in the wrong business if you were causing the problems yourself. Okay,
right.
so, but I think part of am I wrong to also assume that part of your services will also be to follow up? You've carried out a pest control problem. I suggest, I assume that part of your services would also be to inform the client on activities that they could do to discourage the situation from reoccurring. So, in a way, sometimes it could just be you're moving into a new house, and so maybe the house was laid fallow for so long, and that it caused the problem to happen in the first place. But now you've carried out your control, pest control or whatever, and I assume that you would then encourage the customer or what would be necessary for them to carry it out to maintain that state.
Yes, it's a very big part of it. And so we then go through what you call exclusion principles or systems to say, how do you keep this from happening? We may notice in the course of assessing a house that mosquito nets are torn.
Yeah.
We may notice that
gutters are not cleaned.
Gutters are not cleaned, or underneath the doors, the space is too wide, and so little rats can crawl in, wall geckos can crawl in. and so many other things. So there are things we can do then. And even sometimes when you have vegetation around that is creeping towards the house, that makes termite infestation problems really rife, because as you have more vegetation coming towards your house, you are more likely to have termite issues, especially the subterranean type of termites.
Okay. At some point, I'm going to give you a case scenario, and I did tell you about this, so I'm going to give you a case scenario, one that you've probably encountered before, and I want to know, as the manager, what you would do. One of the first steps you would do with regards to this particular case scenario. So please just be patient with me, because I'm asking you these questions, and the more you answer, the more I keep coming up with things. Okay, so now, how about your company surviving challenges such as the weather? I want to know how you navigate some of these things, because I've noticed with some of the pictures, and I'll share, you've done outside cleaning. It's usual to clean the internal environment, but some houses require you going outside, cleaning windows and all of that. How has that been affected by things such as the weather, biological effects such as even birds and animals and all of that? And how do you consider navigating that situation?
Yeah, well, certain conditions make cleaning very difficult. When it's very sunny outside, for instance, and you're working to clean a very heavily cement-filled floor, say like typical vitrified floor tiles outdoors. You can't work a good deal with it under the sun, because the tiles themselves will be reflecting a lot of that heat onto you, and then there's a lot of discomfort. People who are working there will be sweating, and so it's very, very difficult to work properly under those conditions. So what we'll typically do is leave that bit until the evening.
I like that.
Go in very early in the morning before the sun comes out, and then attend to that part. Then now move in when the sun comes out into the inner areas there. And when the rain falls, it's something similar. In fact, rainfall also even affects pest control, not just cleaning, because sometimes you endanger the environment when you've done pest control, say like on a lawn. And the idea behind what you've done is maybe you've introduced what we call systemic pesticides that are meant to go into the soil to kill certain pests that will go onto the flowering plants. The idea is for the roots and stem of the plants to take up those pesticides, right? But for them not to harm the plant. But when a pest comes and sucks from the plant, they then kill the pest. Right? So the sap and other parts of that plant will then hold the pesticide, and any pest that comes to suck from it will then die. So that's what you intend. But if it's raining and you've made the application, if you're not careful, you risk a runoff where the pesticides will now go into the drainage or go into some other water system, etc.
And cause problems.
Exactly. Defeats the purpose, because then you don't have what is there for the roots to absorb. But then the problem for the environment, because you are polluting the water sources, over there. Tadpoles and otters will die, and so many other things if you're not careful. So what happens in those situations is that you can use a different type of application. Like there are some granules that you can apply instead of liquid pesticides, which when the rain comes will not wash away, but will instead have them remain trapped in the sand, and then they will be breaking down and going into the soil as the rain is falling. So the rain then helps it instead of causing a dispersal into the...
It's interesting you're saying this, because you're reminding me of some of my biology and chemistry background, where you have what we term effective concentration. So unless in this particular focal point there's an effective concentration, you can't expect microorganisms to be controlled, because it's not just about applying chemicals and applying products. It's about what concentration of the product is there to carry out the necessary disinfection that you are interested in. So thanks for that very super answer. I hope you are not exhausted. We still have a few more, and
I'm here for you.
Okay, so can we talk a bit more about COVID? I know one of the time periods that your company has managed to navigate through is COVID. Please give us a summary of how your company was able to carry out services around this period, and how COVID informed some of the or the situation of COVID, SARS-CoV-2, coronavirus 2 pandemic, how it informed some of the decisions you made as a cleaning and hygienic company.
Hey, I would say we were born for COVID.
I like that.
We were born for COVID. We were made for COVID, and COVID essentially, it's unfortunate that people's lives got lost to that deadly virus.
Yeah.
But COVID is something we were prepared for from the very beginning, because just by virtue of what we do as a hygiene service provider, we were very well positioned to provide people with the solutions that they didn't know that they needed.
Yeah.
Because you had here a virus that was essentially hygiene based, reliant. We advised that if you went into the restroom, you came out, you washed your hands properly, you did this, you did that, because what happens is that you are at risk of getting infected by placing your hand on surfaces that someone who is infected, has touched.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful about that. You have to be careful about situations where you used an ATM machine in the bank, where somebody may have touched it who was infected, and then after you've done that, you put your hand to your face and you may be able to get it in through your mouth, your nose, your eyes, and so on. So you needed, or the environment needed, a service provider that was very particular about hygiene already. Not one that was now going to start to learn
about it,
ways of, doing cleaning, but one that was already in that business from the beginning, the business of hygiene, not the business of cleaning. And that's what we were into. That's what we've been into since we were established. And so it just really helped to get people to know us better, because when they called in with requests for disinfection, which is one thing that they used to request that we come in to do, we already had a system, because it was something we were very familiar with, already. And of course, I did take some training as well from ISSA, which is the International Cleaning Institute in the US. I did take some training through ISSA on online. Then got to understand SARS-CoV-2 all the more. Understand how, even just by simply cleaning, you've deactivated a great part, of the virus, taking it off the surfaces even before you go ahead and do disinfection, So it was a very, very fulfilling time, in the sense of the ability to solve that problem for many people. And we did have quite a number of organizations that called us in then. It was on occasion of that we served DUA Group, which is a big, conglomerate in Nigeria. We worked for Daimler Chrysler, that's the Mercedes company in Nigeria. We worked for them at that time, and a number of other huge firms, big firms as well. And it was a rewarding experience, not just in terms of the financial output, but in terms of the knowledge that we were well positioned to actually help.
Wow.
And not just learning.
Wow, that's really useful. Thanks for sharing that. It was a trying time for everybody, but it's good to know that your company was prepared around that time to handle what was required, which is really, really good. So I'm going to move a bit further in now and just ask about a particular scenario. So I'm a customer, and one thing that has bugged me a number of times in certain areas where I have lived is crickets. They don't allow me sleep. It's night, and that's when they decide to start making that annoying noise, crickety noise. I think it's chirping that it's being referred to as. And so I come to Trueblue service. I said, look, I don't know why it is doing this, particularly in my room. I think it is coming from over there, but it's not over there. I've searched that area, it's not over there. Trueblue services, help me.
All right. So this is where there's a bit of a challenge in that sometimes you have an animal that is a pest, to the homeowner, but is necessary in the larger environment, because of the importance of that particular animal. And so you're torn between killing something that is disturbing somebody and helping the environment that requires that particular animal or insect that is a pest at that point in time. It's just like bees can be a pest to some people, but we know that bees are helpful. It's true bees we have honey. It's true bees that we have pollination of, so many plants out there. The same thing with also so many other species of insects out there that fly and help with pollination. And some of them, even ants, help with agriculture. They help to loosen up the soil because as they dig through the soil, they break, they erect it, and then they help with irrigation also, so that it's easier for water to flow through. So it can be very difficult. So what you do in a situation like that is say, okay, if you want to get rid of crickets, first of all, you may need to get rid of greenery around your area, right? Or at least restrict them. So you don't have a lot of plants, in your immediate vicinity, but you may have a bit of a distance away. Then there are treatments that we can apply inside if crickets have already gotten inside, with the aim of getting rid of those ones, but not harming the ones that are in the larger environment. Because we have to still be responsible in how we apply. Because if we go on and just kill, then we may end up in a situation whereby we start looking for those in various parts of the world. They are trying to repopulate certain animals, in places because they are on the verge of extinction. So sometimes you find out later that something that you've contributed towards destroying a vast population of is actually needed for something in the environment, and then you now start looking for how to breed them again, so you introduce them into that environment. So we can get rid of the problem on the inside and then help with advice on how to prevent them from coming in again, or to reduce the risk of them coming in, and then hopefully allow them be in the greater environment so that they can also flourish and do God's work there.
So Chukwu, thank you so much for really breaking this thing down for us, and I'm very excited to have had you here to talk about Trueblue. We've come to the end of today's conversation now, and as we normally do, I'd like you to show us what you've been making right now, if you've made anything at all.
Okay, I have. I will let you see my drawing in a minute. It's unfortunate that I couldn't finish it up. I tried my best, but I couldn't finish it up. Let me just put a name to it.
Please remember, I'm going to put it on my site. The last time you escaped by not remembering where you kept the art. This time in front of everybody, please scan it and send it to me.
All right, no problem. So I'm going to show you my art. This artwork is a lady. It's not finished, unfortunately, and it's not as good as I would like it to be. But hey, so it's a lady who came into my life some years ago, and who has been a blessing to me. She's the one who I drew. She looks more beautiful than this, but hey, all good.
You could show us who she is.
Reverse the camera so that you can see.
Oh, Chukwudi! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! That is Oyi. Oh my!
Yeah, that's Chukwudifu Onianwa.
Oh my goodness!
But it's not as beautiful as I would like it to be. She's far more beautiful than this.
Chukwudi!
I wasn't relaxed during the drawing, but hey, no need for excessive excuses. That is what it is.
You call her Chocomilo?
Yeah, that's my Chocomilo.
I haven't had Chocomilo in a long while. Chukwudi, that looks fantastic. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you for that. Now I'm going to show you mine quickly, and then we come to the end of this, sadly. Now I've not been able to finish mine as well, but it is what it is. This is what I have drawn. I hope you can see it.
Wow.
So beautiful. This is Yeah, I don't know if you remember when you had started Trueblue
I remember completely.
I was
don't
meant
even
to give you some kind of cartoon representation of your company. So these are the pest busters. So that's a pest buster. Who you gonna call? Obviously, it's Trueblue, and those are germs that are fleeing the scene. And this machine, I don't know what it is called yet, but it's a very
Well,
large buster of something.
yeah, it's probably a fogger. Yeah, it may be a thermal fogger, it may be a cold fogger, but it's a fogger, so it produces smoke.
Wow.
Yeah, it fogs an environment and then kills the pests as the smoke circulates.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay. So that is
Well
my
done.
gift to you. So Chukwudi, honestly speaking, I think your
Nice.
company is a great one. It's an amazing one. You've inspired me on a lot of fronts. And I just wanted to say thank you. People, please contact Chukwudi if you've got
Pleasure is all mine.
anything whatsoever, information you need on pest management, the services for Trueblue. I'm going to leave links to his Facebook page for that. Chukwudi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I
Thank you
can't
for
wait
having
to
me.
have a conversation with you again in future.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was
All
good
right.
coming.
Take care now. Bye bye.